Refrigerant Safety Data Sheets. Why they're useful, the information they contain, and why you might be confused by them at certain times. That's the subject we're going to talk about today on this episode of Refrigerant Checkup with Dr. Chuck. Thanks everyone, and welcome back to another episode. Today we want to talk about the Refrigerant Safety Data Sheets and the information that's contained on them. Now, safety data sheets, I will start off by saying, are not just for refrigerants. Any kind of chemical material that you may be handling as part of commerce will probably come or have available a safety data sheet, really designed to give you all the information you need to safely handle, use, dispose of that material. So when it comes to refrigerants, a lot of the information is pretty straightforward, but all the details are there. And so if we run through the kind of sections that you'll find in a typical SDS, these are all put together under OSHA, under their hazard communications standard. So that calls out specifically the information that has to be in the SDS, kind of what order, the different sections. So it starts off with simple, identification of the substance, and then it's hazards identification. That's where something you'll get a flag like flammability or toxicity, those type of keywords that will be in that first section. Then it goes into the composition, if it's a mixture, the different components, then first aid measures if there's an exposure, firefighting response and procedures, what to do if there's an accidental release, handling and storage information, exposure control. These come into workplace, monitoring levels like the OELs, that type of information, physical chemical properties, stability and reactivity, toxicity, ecological properties, disposal, transport information, regulatory information, and finally another section to collect anything else that's important that hasn't been there. So a lot of information. You may or may not need parts of this depending on your job or your job responsibilities. So again, the SDS, a lot of good information. Now, why it can be confusing, as I said in the beginning, these aren't just for the refrigeration industry. So in refrigeration HVACR, we typically have ASHRAE guidelines or ISO guidelines that give us a lot of this same information. Hopefully it's consistent and is harmonized so you're not getting two different numbers or two different indications on something. But the industry, the chemical industry in general, is kind of going through a process where a lot of this has been updated over the past years. It's still a little bit of a work in progress, but I think we're most of the way there. So if you get some information, on transportation and storage, that may be two different agencies kind of generating those guidelines. One might be DOT and one could be NFPA. So sometimes you'll have to look at that in light of the ASHRAE guidelines to find out exactly the information you want. I will also say that the units are sometimes specified, and sometimes we get some weird units. If we have to present pressure, for example, vapor pressure, it used to be, it had to be delivered in terms of units of pascals or hectopascals. Very kind of impractical for us, particularly in the US, who measure things in PSI or PSIG to be specific. Sometimes we use absolute pressure, but pressure gauge is typically how we measure it in the field. But other parts of the world, and for other reasons, we'll use bar or pascals. All legitimate units of pressure, all can be interconverted. But again, it makes a little confusing if you're trying to find simple information. I will say another thing that has confused some people in the past, including myself, some of the rating scales assessing hazards will put them on like a 1 to 4 scale. And some start 1 being the worst and 2, 3, 4 being the least concern. And others go the exact opposite, where 1 is kind of the least concern, 2, 3, 4, 5 being the maximum. So you always want to check, make sure things are in a proper relative perspective when you're looking at the detailed information. But again, we're here to help you at Chemours. If you have any questions about anything, no point in being confused. Give us a call, get on our 800 number, or go to our website if you have a specific question. And we answer these type of questions on a fairly regular basis. So we kind of understand where people might get confused. Unfortunately, it's a big world out there, and you're trying to have one uniform document that serves everybody's needs. There's going to be trade-offs. It's not going to be optimum for everyone. But again, before you handle anything, you should really get the SDS, print it out, go online, read through it just to make sure you have no surprises. Particularly as we're getting into A2Ls, we've been addressing flammability, but all the good safety and handling properties and procedures that we use around refrigerants that will always be there. Asphyxiation concerns, storage properly, you know, and again, transportation. If you're driving a service van and you need to have a few jugs of refrigerant, probably not a big issue. But if you're driving a big box truck going from one warehouse to another with equipment, with pallets of refrigerant, you may have some other concerns. Again, anything you're not clear about, reach out to us. We're always glad to help, and we're here to answer your questions. Thanks so much for your support, for your business. Please stay safe out there. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.